Okay. All right. All right. Is everyone able to hear me and see my screen?
Yep, looks great.
All right. Thank you very much. So again, welcome to today's webinar. It's going to be about factory-built homes, and we're going to try to do a little bit specific about accessory dwelling units, but we'll talk more about more housing types than just accessory dwelling units. But it seems quite pertinent given some current context of different municipal legislation in the state, and I'll talk about that very briefly soon. We're so thankful to have Amy and Angie from the Wisconsin Housing Alliance to join us to present today. And we're also thankful for Godfrey and Kahn for sponsoring this webinar. So I'm Carl Glazemeyer, and I work for 1,000 Friends of Wisconsin. We are a nonprofit organization that was founded in 1996. When we were founded, we were advocating for the comprehensive planning law that now is state law. So every municipality has to do comprehensive plan. Since then, we've expanded our mission to also include transportation policy advocacy. What we're really trying to do is advance healthy communities, positive economic outcomes, and environmental benefits for all of Wisconsin. In addition, 1,000 Friends of Wisconsin also helps host Active Wisconsin, which is a coalition of communities and advocacy groups from across the state that are dedicated to active transportation. You can learn more about 1,000 Friends and Active Wisconsin by going to their respective websites or follow us on social media. We also have newsletters that we send out monthly for each of those. So a little bit of relevant context for why we really want to be hosting this webinar now and why we're really thinking about accessory dwelling units. Right now in this city of Milwaukee, we've been helping to advocate for this ongoing comprehensive plan update that is in process. It was formerly called Growing MKE, but it sounds like there's possible for potential name change on that. But simultaneously, there is accessory dwelling unit legislation that is nearing a common council vote. If you're interested in learning more about that, there's a great Urban Milwaukee article that just came out yesterday on that particular piece of legislation. Also, we've been working with John D. Johnson, who's actually on our board, but also he's a researcher at Marquette who's been writing about the prohibitive costs of new construction in Milwaukee. And he's part of his research is interested in trying to figure out if accessory dwelling units or ADUs are a way to build housing at a lower cost. Also relevant, the city of La Crosse last year passed an ADU legislation so that they also allow for accessory dwelling units. And just recently, they had a design competition getting architects to design different ADUs. So now they have a library of accessory dwelling units for La Crosse. And hopefully this helps streamline the process for anyone who's interested in building these. So this is just some relevant context of what's happening in 2 municipalities across the state. And we're excited to bring Wisconsin Housing Alliance here to present today. We're really interested in if factory-built homes can help meet the current need that we have for new homes in Wisconsin, and we really want to learn more about the opportunities and obstacles for getting factory-built housing to be built in our cities. So I'm going to go ahead and stop screen sharing now, and I will turn it over to Angie and Amy to introduce themselves and share all of their wonderful work that they've been doing.
Hi, so my name is Angie Diedrich. I'm the Deputy Executive Director for the Wisconsin Housing Alliance. And with me today is our Executive Director, Amy Bliss. With the Wisconsin Housing Alliance represents the factory-built housing industry in Wisconsin. And we go from the manufacturer all the way down to the retailer to manufactured home communities, pretty much just about anywhere that we advocate for that industry as well. So we're going to get started today to kind of I'm going to give you a brief overview on what factory built housing means, because sometimes it gets confusing. And then Amy will talk how ADUs fit into all this and what research and other things we've seen in other states about ADUs. Oh, it's not going.
While she's looking into that, I'll introduce myself. I'm Amy Bliss. I'm the Executive Director for Wisconsin Housing Alliance. I've been with the industry for 34 years, so I've been around the block a few times. I'm excited about the discussion of ADUs because I think our industry is perfectly aligned to serve any need that might be out there as it relates to ADUs. So I don't know, Angie, do you have it so it can move now, or are you ready?
So we'll start with a quick, I don't know if you guys can hear this video, probably not.
No sound on the video.
Yeah, I don't think there's a sound on the video. But if you just kind of look, here's a couple examples of some factory built manufactured homes with some garages on them. And it just kind of gives a quick overview of this video. We can share a link with it later on about what our construction is like. Can I go to the next slide? I don't think it's going to let me. So yeah, and here's some of the quick insights of a home. They're built with the same materials as a site-built home is. The walls are 2x6 construction. And they're built to the HUD code, which is a federal building code. And each home has to go through a rigorous engineered, like third-party engineered approved design. Here we have over 91,000 manufactured homes in this state. You can see, it accounts for over 3.5% of all homeowners in this state. Trying to think of what else is on this video, but let me go past it. There we go. So we have a couple different manufacturers that are our members in the state. So there's two types of housing in this state. There's manufactured housing and modular housing. So modular housing, I'll show you in a minute, is built to the UDC, but they're pretty much built almost identical. We have Mid-Country Homes in Dorchester, Skyline Homes in Lancaster, Wisconsin Homes in Marshfield, and Stratford Homes in Stratford. So we got a lot of opportunity just in this state to use manufacturers in our state. So factory built housing is just housing which is built in a factory. It's pretty self-explanatory. It's built off-site and it's assembled in a controlled environment via, there's no weather getting into it. People run tight lines down there. You can see on the left, the workers are actually at work level and all the materials are up, and ready for them to do their jobs quickly and efficiently. And then basically what they do is they take the home and they install it on site or assemble it depending on how many parts it comes in. And factory built housing can fall under 4 general categories usually. Manufactured, which is built to the HUD code, modular, which is built to the Wisconsin UDC code, panelized, which is pretty much wall sections put together in like a big puzzle kit, and then pre-cut, which that's HUD's term for basically you think of your Sears kit home or a home you'd buy at Menards where you could get all the pieces together and then be able to assemble it. So for manufactured homes here, like I said, they're built to the HUD code. The HUD code is a performance. Uh-oh. Sorry, I don't know what happened here. Okay, sorry about that. The HUD code is a performance code. So that means each home is uniquely engineered and has to be inspected by a third party and before it leaves the factory. And each HUD code home receives a label that's affixed to the outside of the home. And if you can see in the bottom left corner, that is a manufactured home. So it's not what you think of. It's got a 3-car garage, and that one's in La Crosse, Wisconsin, in a manufactured home community that all the homes look pretty much the same. I don't know why it keeps kicking me out. That is weird. Okay. I'm really sorry about that. All right, then we have modular homes, which are really similar to manufactured homes. They're just built to a different building code. So they are built to the Wisconsin UDC code. And they're inspected by Wisconsin inspectors, and then they get an insignia on there. A lot of manufacturers who build manufactured homes also built modular homes, and they're almost identical. You would never know on the insides, it's just more the framing on the outside. In other words, everything inside is the same. And then we have cross-mod, which some people are hearing about. Cross-mod homes are a type of manufactured home that is built to the HUD code. It just has some more aesthetic appeals to it. And it was a type of home that came around for Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac financing. It's supposed to be able to build into traditional neighborhoods better, just because it's got a little bit higher roof pitch and stuff. But basically almost all manufactured homes, can fit into a neighborhood. So now there's a bunch of more designs coming out, like modern designs. We got the lovely offset roof pitches here. And then the new thing with manufactured housing is duplexes have been approved by the HUD code. As you can imagine, the federal government goes pretty slow when they approve things. So now we finally are able to put these duplexes out there, which is a real bonus to some areas. They're just great options for if you need a little bit more density in a certain area. The one in the upper right corner is actually a very small home. It's on its own floor system. So the chassis that's under a manufactured home, it's on one chassis. And when you go in there, they just look like cute little apartments. We've seen these homes on display several places, but they work really well. Or the ones in any of these duplexes are great. A lot of people like to use them to put like up north, and they can have a rental property, things like that. Or, if you don't want all the family in one whole home, you can banish some to the other side on your vacation. So then we get to park models and tiny homes. So park models are an RV. They are built to the RV code. They are not designed to be a permanent dwelling, especially in Wisconsin. The walls are usually thinner and there's not as much insulation in there. So those are used usually to be put into campgrounds or on your private land to be able to be used seasonally in Wisconsin. Wisconsin currently does not have a definition of what a tiny home is. So you just kind of need to check with the municipalities and stuff to see whatever home it being put in is built to a residential building code. And then most people, so mobile home's an outdated term. It technically hasn't been around since 1976. The homes are called manufactured homes now. Homes that are put down aren't mobile anymore. You can see on this picture, they kind of put something around the hitch down there, and they were be able to, at that time, be able to take and place somewhere. Now, to be able to move a home that's a manufactured home, it will cost over $10,000 to be able to move that home and put in a new place. It's not easy. You're talking about ripping off siding and insulation and stuff just to be able to make it transfer to another place and then reassembled. So they're not mobile anymore. And then trailer. Trailer is a very outdated term. Trailers used very commonly in the RV industry. We also represent the RV dealers of Wisconsin, and this is their terminology. They use trailer a lot, travel trailer, things like that. And trailers are built to an RV code and be able to be towed behind a vehicle. And that's what's in the state statute currently as well. And then we have accessory dwelling units. And this is where I'm going to pass it over to Amy, and she's going to start talking about accessory dwelling units.
Hello, everybody, and thank you for having me. I'm excited to talk about this because I think this could really open up a lot of housing for Wisconsin. And no matter what area of Wisconsin you're in, whether it's urban, whether it's rural, we all know that housing is a really expensive commodity right now. And the only way to get ourselves out of this is to build more housing. And we need all types of housing. We don't really need, $600,000 to $1 million houses in Wisconsin. What we need is workforce housing, the missing middle, and accessory dwelling units could definitely have a place in that discussion. So most the municipalities that are working on accessory dwelling unit language, they describe it as being either attached or detached, providing complete independent living facilities for one or more people. They're usually located on a lot with a proposed or an existing primary residence. And it includes area living spaces such as sleeping, eating, cooking, sanitation, and on the same parcel as a single or multifamily dwelling. And that's really a good distinction. I know here in Madison, and I know elsewhere, they were using something called pallet homes to house homeless individuals, but none of those homes had their own independent cooking facilities, running water, bathroom facilities. They all had to share those facilities in a common structure. So that's not what we're talking about. But I do believe that these small homes that are built with all of the amenities someone would need could be a solution to homelessness that would be permanent versus temporary. So, just keep that in mind as we go along. Next slide, Angie. So I'm just going to show you a couple of pictures. They can be really, really cute. Just because it's small doesn't mean it has to be ugly. And these examples that we're showing you are built in a factory, assembled on site, and they can be put in the backyard, a side yard, and be completely independent from the main home structure, which is less expensive, believe it or not, than it would be to, say, add onto your home or build a flat above the garage or convert the garage into a home. And the reason it's less expensive is because it's all done with economies of scale. Our manufacturers order thousands of toilets at the same time, versus, a one-off contractor that maybe is only going to do 10 homes that year. So the economies of scale are a huge reason that manufactured and modular housing is so much less expensive than site-built housing. And I thought, I know Carl was talking about having ARP do some of the presentations. So I wanted to pull in some of the things that were in their document. It's called the ABCs of ADUs. And I thought this was so interesting because I'm from a family of 6. We had a very small farmhouse when I was little, and we lived happily ever after in that farmhouse. And, you know, these statistics here that say an average square footage of a new single family home in 1950 was 983 square feet. And in 2016, it was closer to 2,600 square feet. And I would venture to say that in 2025, that's even grown from the 2,600 square feet. And the number of people in the house has decreased, which, you know, that's interesting as well. I had 6 kids in my family with, of course, 2 parents. So back in 1950, the average household was 3.8 people, and now it's 2.5, and sometimes even that is going down as some of the younger generations are choosing not to have children. So anyway, I thought these statistics were quite stark because I live in Cottage Grove, which is just a suburb of Madison, and all of the houses that are being built are absolutely huge. I mean, there is no affordable housing being built unless it's an apartment. And even the apartments aren't affordable. They're, you know, $1,800 a month for a 1-bedroom in most cases. So anyway, as we think about solving this crisis, I think we need to kind of look back a little bit onto the roots of housing in the, you know, 1950s, 1960s, and kind of get back to realizing that it doesn't have to be a mansion to house someone, and not everybody can afford that. So anyway, I thought that was a interesting chart. So there's a lot of benefits to ADUs. You know, they're affordable to construct in most cases, unless you're doing an addition to a house, which then there's a lot more engineering and, you know, architecture and design and making sure that the roof loads are properly tied in. And so it gets a little bit more expensive to do an addition to a home versus a standalone factory built home. It can provide a source of income for homeowners, which a lot of those homeowners that maybe already own their home free and clear, they're, you know, older adults, and they might want an additional source of income in retirement. And this is a great way to do it. And one of the things in the ARP information that I looked at, they did a survey of people over age 50 that were considering creating an ADU on their land. And 84% of them said that it would be to provide a home for a loved one in need of care. So whether that's an adult child that maybe isn't able to live completely on their own, or whether it's an elderly parent, if you're in that sandwich generation. And then 64% said they'd consider it because they'd feel safer having someone live nearby. So if they're out, you know, in the country and have some acreage, that's a perfect reason to do an ADU as well. Some of them just want to do it for guests, which that's pretty common in a lot of areas like Arizona and Florida where people get a lot of guests. I know in California, they call them casitas. Very nice to have. It's like a little hotel room. And sometimes it's detached from the house as well. Others are doing it to increase the value of their home or to earn income from renting to a tenant. And that was about 53% of the people who said they would like an ADU. Um, so anyway, there's a lot of good reasons to think about it. And there's a lot of flexibility that can be had. I know there's some fun names for ADUs. Some people call them granny flats, cottage homes. There's all sorts of different terminology for them. Alley flats, backyard bungalow, carriage house, coach house, granny flat, in-law suite. So you can call them by a lot of different names. But anyway, so we'll move on. So municipalities are definitely seeing this as an option to create more housing. There are some problems with how they're going about it, though. I get notices every day about different zoning updates and whatnot, and everywhere from Eau Claire to Madison to Middleton to Wauwatosa and many others are contemplating allowing ADUs by right, which would make it seriously easier. You wouldn't have to have a lot of fighting at the municipal zoning meetings and that type of thing because they're inherently allowed. But it's not taking hold as much as they would like. For example, in Dane County and Madison, they were offering $100,000 for people to do ADUs. And I believe at a meeting I was just at, I was told that only one person took them up on it. And part of the reason that could be, I looked up their zoning for the ADUs, and there was nothing alarming about it other than the fact that they had environmental impact fees and building permit fees that were almost $9,000. So to pay $9,000 for absolutely nothing as far as the value of that home, adding more energy efficient windows or maybe a solar panel to make it more energy efficient. Those things people might be willing to pay $9,000 for, but not really just government fees. And the impact fees are generally for, a park or a library. Well, if you're already in an established community, that's pretty unnecessary. So that was something that, was a drawback. Also, I know Wauwatosa has a program where they're offering for four ADUs, $25,000 rebate for hooking up to city water and sewer, electricity, and gas or whatever utility hookups have to be made. And I talked with them the other day, and they weren't sure if they would allow a manufactured home as the ADU. They're still contemplating that, but no one has taken them up on that yet either, because anyone who was looking at doing addition to the house or reconfiguring the house, their quotes were in the $400,000 range. And so we put a package together with one of our retailers and one of our manufacturers. And the total cost for installation, everything, was going to be about $120,000, but that included all the hookups. So that could be rebated, so it would be under $100,000. And we're still working through some of those deals. Nothing has been finalized yet. And the thing about the factory built product is it generally comes with all your appliances. So that's also a huge benefit, because those are bought during the factory process with those economies of scale. So someone moving in wouldn't have to buy a refrigerator, a stove, a washer and dryer. Generally, these have washer and dryers in them. Sometimes they're a little smaller. They're definitely stacked washers and dryers, but who doesn't like stacked washers and dryers? Mine are at my house too. So anyway, that's just a little bit about some of the municipalities we've talked to. Middleton is being very aggressive about their ADU regulations. So they've got some good zoning in place if anyone wants to look at that. Okay, so some of the do's and don'ts, if people are looking at this, incentive programs, a definite do. But you got to get the word out there somehow. And you got to be ready with what you will and will not accept. And preferably, we don't eliminate the factory built structures because that's the only way to do it inexpensively. And we also recommend not allowing ADUs that are not built to a residential building code. I think that's where some municipalities have gotten a bad taste in their mouth about ADUs. You know, someone might take a garage package, you know, that you can get at Menards, or you see these garage kits on the sides of the roads where they have a demonstration site, and people start putting in insulation, they start putting in electricity, they start doing all this stuff to this garage kit, but it's not built to any residential standards. It's not built to the residential roof loads, the insulation, and you know, the windows aren't appropriate for Wisconsin winters. So we do recommend that they be built to either the federal HUD building code or the state uniform dwelling building code, and that they don't eliminate factory built structures. So next slide. So some of the expenses to consider is the utility hookups. I know there's a lot of small rural subdivisions outside of Madison that are on well and septic that are private. And that can be a concern because if the septic system wasn't built for that extra 1, 2, 3 people that might live in the ADU, that would be an expensive consideration. And then also, you know, water and electrical and gas hookups, you know, and where those might go. Those are all considerations. We talked about the government fees and regulations like building permit fees, impact fees, different arbitrary restrictions. Like a lot of them have unrealistic things that are dictated, like the size has to be so big, or the parking, you have to have so many more parking spots, or they have aesthetic requirements that might say it has to have a brick facade, and all of that just increases the price tremendously. But the homes can be built like any other home. They can be on a foundation, whether that's a basement or a crawl space. They can be put on a concrete slab. They can be built on poured piers according to the Uniform Dwelling Code, or any other engineered method that would be approved by the manufacturer. They can have garage additions, decks, entries, exits. A lot of them that we showed in the pictures had some type of porch on it that makes it look more aesthetically pleasing. The thing to consider, though, is that basements, whether it's a bigger basement or a small basement, you can't hardly touch a basement for under $60,000. So concrete's expensive. And do they really need a basement if it's, you know, a granny flat? And, you know, if there's a tornado, the main house has a basement, they can always go there. Those type of things would be excessive if they demanded that they have them. So financing, it is easier than you might think. Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, USDA Rural Development, WIDA, they can finance manufactured homes just like any other site-built home. if it's built to the cross mod standards, meaning it has more aesthetic preferences like a higher pitched roof, maybe a front porch, an attached garage or carport, a sidewalk going up to the entry, and a nicer looking perimeter versus, say, the old fashioned thing that people think of like skirting. They don't want that, but they can be financed and they can be appraised against site built comparables. So those are all good things. ADUs can also be financed by some of those entities, just like anything else. I also talked with American Family Insurance, someone that's in a housing group in Dane County, and he said that they will, insure the ADU just as any other part of the property. So that's good news. All of that's good news. So some of the obstacles and opportunities, obviously NIMBYism is an obstacle. There are some federal legislations called Yes in My Backyard that's being worked on. And it would be lovely if that would get passed so that we could get beyond some of the not in my backyard type of legislation or zoning. You know, some people talk about they don't want those type of people who come with that type of housing, but those people could be the nurse at your local hospital, the school teacher at the school, the firefighter, the Quick Trip employee. Those people need places to live, and they're welcome in your community, and they should be welcome to live in their community as well. So those are the things I like to talk about. Is it's not those people, it's your people working in your community. So what we really need to work on is updating outdated zoning and stereotypes. We need to do more education, which we've been trying to do quite a bit of. Land is expensive, so anything we can do to have higher density, like the ADUs, is a good thing. And bad credit can be an obstacle to some people trying to purchase their first home. But we can all work on that. There's tax credits, there's CDBG funding, there's incentives for developers. There's always credit counseling, as I'm sure some of you may be involved in some of that. I think the biggest thing we can do is do pilot programs or pilot projects and to partner with nonprofits, because once a municipality has a great pilot program and you make a big splash about it, even the surrounding communities want to be part of that as well. So those are some of the best things we can do. And then, don't have unreasonable square footage requirements. Don't mandate large lots or basements or 3-car garages. In a subdivision, if you're doing a new subdivision, you don't necessarily have to have sidewalks on both sides of the street. That's expensive. And we just have to be creative. And, to make housing happen, we all have to work together to keep it affordable and attainable. So some new projects I want to just mention. I think I have some time and then we'll open it up for questions. There's a really nice project happening in Hillsborough, Wisconsin, and it's through Habitat for Humanity of La Crosse. And they are going to be the first builders of some cross mod homes here in Wisconsin. They have a total of 10 lots that they worked with the city of Hillsborough. The city of Hillsborough had developed a subdivision many years ago, and it just wasn't filling up. And so they put out an RFP. Habitat won the RFP, got the lots for a very inexpensive amount of money. And their first home should be going in June. And the really exciting part of these homes is they're very, very cute. And they've got a lot of people lined up that want to buy them. But the best thing is they're going to maintain their affordability because all of the homes are built to a zero energy ready standard, and they will have solar arrays. And so it will make them very affordable into the future because they won't have to pay a lot for their electric bill. So that's a very exciting project. It's only 10 homes, but it's 10 homes in a very rural community with only 1,200 people in it. So it can be done anywhere. And then in Sheboygan County, this project I'm really excited about. They're putting in basically a manufactured home community, which means you own your own home, but you rent the land. And it's for people with dementia or Alzheimer's. It's called Dementia Innovations. They're going to put in 124 homes over the next few years. And the only requirement to live in the community is that you or a family member have dementia or Alzheimer's or something in that spectrum. And the homes are going to be built in like little cul-de-sacs where they have a caretaker that can take care of maybe everyone in those 10 houses. And the bonus is that they get to live with their family members. It is not a nursing facility. They're not housed like in a nursing home or an extended care facility. They're still in their own home. They can have their guests whenever they want. They can eat their meals with their spouse or their children. They're going to have um, a beauty shop. They're going to have a grocery store. They're going to have a movie theater. They're going to have a restaurant, so that this little community will be kind of self-sustaining and be very familiar for people who have memory issues. So we're really excited about that. They're hoping to break ground this fall for the first few homes and then just continue forward from there. They've raised about $8 million so far. They have a few more million to go for the completion, but they've raised enough to get the project started. And then in Eau Claire, there's a new manufactured home community that's called The Cove. And there's going to be about 70 new homes in that community. They are smaller in nature. It will be a great way for people who want to downsize and maybe snowbird in the winter. And that's already underway. They've put in at least 5 homes already, and I think there's quite a few more to come yet this summer. And then in Broadhead, Wisconsin, they're doing an entire subdivision that's going to be all manufactured homes, most likely the cross mod homes. So we're excited to see all of those projects getting off the ground, and acceptance of the factory built housing industry is starting to come along finally. So with that, I would like to open it up to questions.
Thank you so much for the presentation.
Yeah.
I'm actually going to go ahead and start with the first question that I have. Can you talk? I know you've mentioned some places in Wisconsin that produce these homes, and you've also talked a little bit about some wonderful projects that are happening. Do you feel like the the capacity, the manufacturing capacity, um, is supporting the current projects? Do you think there's a much more capacity that we have within the manufacturing side to upscale what we're building?
Yeah, I do feel that there's manufacturing capacity. And the reason I say that is because um, back in the 80s and 90s, our industry was producing over 3,000 homes a year. And last year we produced just over like close to 1,100. So we definitely have manufacturing capacity. Um, and what's really funny is because even in the locations where we have manufacturers, they need housing to get more employees. So, you know, the more housing we build, the more likely it is they can get more employees. They could be running 2 shifts. I do believe that the capacity is definitely there, and it's definitely there more so than any site builder because, site builders have to get a plumber on the job at the time they need it. They need the electrician at the time they need it. It, it's, it, it's very difficult to control that timing, and the project just stops as you're waiting for one aspect of it to be done. Whereas in the factory, everything is inspected in the factory. So there's no waiting for an inspector. There's no waiting for a plumber or an electrician or any of the other trades because it's all done by people who work there every day doing that job. So it's much more efficient.
Thank you. We have a question here, which I think you may have covered. I just want to see if you did. Are USDA rural loans an option to finance these houses?
Yes, definitely. USDA has a few of their own little requirements, but yes, they are able to lend on manufactured and modular homes.
And then another thing about financing, have you seen any one like a current homeowner who might have a lot of equity in their house, maybe they own it outright, use the equity in their house to then build ADU? Do you know if that's a
It can,
possibility?
it is a possibility, yes. Just last week I met with, there was a few lenders there. I know Bank of Sun Prairie was one of the lenders, and there was a couple others. Um, and someone from LIDA was there, and they definitely said, yes, that can be done.
We had a question about what types of regulatory barriers are we seeing in Wisconsin, and what solutions do we have? I think you've covered a good amount on some of the sort of municipal zoning barriers that might exist. Are there also like any other statewide barriers that you're seeing?
Not statewide, no. It all comes down to, local control for the most part. Um, some counties are friendlier than other counties. Some municipalities are friendlier than other municipalities. And I think sometimes in rural communities, it's worse than in um, a city because the town chairman might have been the town chairman for the last 35 years and they own that town and they're going to make that decision. And that can be a real drawback if there's not, you know, more progressive people that run for local office. I remember when I first moved to Cottage Grove, uh, we were just starting our family and they were just little kids. And the guy who had been the town chairperson for decades, we needed more police presence. And he's like, well, I don't need more police to protect my corn crops. And, so he kind of killed all the initiatives because he didn't have kids in the school. He didn't need police protection for his corn crops. And, so sometimes it's the old school people that can be the biggest obstacle.
Yeah, as I'm in the advocacy space, I feel like sometimes when people are secure in their housing already, they definitely forget that housing is hard to get into now. It is insecure for a lot of people.
Yeah. Yeah.
Here's a question, and this probably gets more to the like particular regulations for various municipalities, but it's how big would your lot have to be in order to fit an ADU? And obviously, this is a detached, like a separate structure.
Yeah, and that's really hard to say because it depends on, where the gas lines are or where the electric lines are. They buried underneath the ground? What's the setbacks from, your neighbor's lot? What's your setbacks from, any other structure? So that's really, really hard to say. I don't have a, an exact specific answer to that just because, it really depends. And if you're real rural, you might have to have a propane tank and there's setback requirements from that or your septic system. So can't really answer that one. It's pretty site specific.
It sounds like that might be one of the potential hurdles. Obviously, with housing, it's always specific to your particular location.
Yeah.
Um, I've got a few questions here that are talking about specific projects that happened in particular locations. I'm just interested if there's any info that you have on whether or not they're involve manufactured homes, or if you had any knowledge or involvement in it. There was some small homes that were created for veterans in Kenosha, the city of Kenosha. I don't know if that was anything that had to do with manufactured homes.
I'm not aware of that project. Sorry.
No, that's fine. And then another one, uh, uh, it looks like a collaboration in the city of Milwaukee with the Habitat and Eco. That's the part of the city of Milwaukee. Do you know if Habitat and City of Milwaukee was doing any factory built homes? I think there was conversations of even trying to get a factory to build factory built homes in Milwaukee at one point.
I've heard of that initiative and that would be wonderful. Um, I don't know that it's ever taken off. It would be great to have the manufacturing facility there because in some corridors, it's kind of rough to move home sections throughout Milwaukee just because, the roads are more congested and um, especially if you're talking downtown, that type of thing. Um, I know there was an initiative that one of my employees went to um, where they did have different kinds of homes. Angie, can you remember the name of that home that Katie
Oh,
told
the
us?
Lush home? Yeah,
Lush. Yeah.
yeah. So there's other kinds of eco homes, and Lush Home is they use scrap, I guess, boards from commercial projects, and they're able to CNC cut um, almost like a jigsaw puzzle home to put together. And you use basically a rubber mallet for the most part to be able to put together these homes. And it just makes it kind of a little more eco and helps a little more sustainability. It does take a while to put together some of those homes. So that's also another thing to think about when you're talking about different housing projects in your area. For a factory built home from start to finish, from when you order the home to when it takes a while, obviously, to get permits and stuff like that through the city. It can take, between 4 to 6 months for your home once step foot in a retail center and pick out all your options and what kind of countertops and everything you want like that. Most of For us on the factory built housing side, most of the time comes from site prep and waiting for inspectors to be able to come out and inspect the process as it goes, kind of deal. So yeah, it's that. I know Habitat for Humanity in La Crosse, they use a lot of factory built housing in their projects because for them it's a huge cost savings to be able to do that. And some of these bigger organizations and stuff like partner together as well to help pool money. I know New Cap, one of the cap agencies in Wisconsin, they're actually starting their own manufacturing facility to help build really small homes to help people with homelessness up there. So these homes will be around 400 square feet, the first one, because they get a lot of free land from like the county and the cities and stuff, but they're really weird sections. So having smaller homes or home sizes like an ADU or something where you can just put a one-car garage next to it, because everyone likes their garage in Wisconsin to keep your car out of the snow. But that's their option that they're seeing that's going to really work in their area up around the Shawano area. So yeah, there's just lots of options out there to be able to use factory built housing very efficiently. It's efficient, quick. So.
And in Milwaukee specifically, several years ago, probably a couple decades now, the Lindsay Heights neighborhood in Milwaukee, a lot of those homes were done with modular homes.
It's good to know.
Yep.
We'll probably just do one more question, and this is these two questions or comments are kind of related, I would assume. One is, do municipalities where this is taking hold, do they require owner occupancy of ADUs? And there was someone else who said that they've heard that some people are worried about ADUs being used for bed and breakfast or short-term sort of rental use.
Yeah. Some of the things I've seen require that one of the properties be owner occupied. They allow rental, but most cities are doing this for affordable housing so that they increase more affordable housing. So they are limiting the ability for short-term rentals. They allow them to be rented, but not short-term. So it wouldn't be like, I want to stay in Milwaukee for 2 weeks because Polish Fest is going on. It would be more, I'm going to have a 1-year lease and this is where I'm going to live. So a lot of municipalities are saying no, they can't do that. It's meant for housing, residential.
I'll do, sorry, one more question. Have you seen any changes on the federal level affect sort of like the you mentioned these HUD sort of standardized way of certifying these homes. Have you seen any disruption to that process or anything?
Not yet. So far, I mean, the program's been around since 1976. We've had federal building codes, and there has been progress made in updating those codes recently, like to allow duplexes and that type of thing. So there's some good things forming. There's also other things we're working on with multiple groups at the federal level. For something we call preemption, meaning that if it's built to a federal HUD code, you can't discriminate against the house just because it was built in the factory or to that code. So we do work on stuff like that at all times. I mean, that's really what we do. So if I answered your question, I just want to throw this out there to everybody on the call. Angie and I are willing to talk with anyone. We're willing to do this Zoom type of thing with anyone. If anyone is seriously interested and would like to see some developments or would like to see how the factory process works, it amazes people when they get to that factory and they're like, oh, that is the CertainTeed shingles I have on my house. Oh, that wood is actual wood, just like I have. Oh, that drywall is just like what's in my house. It's like, I think, sometimes people think it can't be as good being built in a factory and that the materials are cheap. And that's just not the truth. So we love to talk about the industry, and we're willing to come to any kind of zoning meeting, any kind of group like yours, the Thousand Friends. We don't ever advocate to put like the old stereotypical single section rectangular box in a subdivision where it would not fit in. So, don't be afraid to reach out to us. We're very, very accessible, and we'd love to help anybody do additional housing that would make housing more affordable in Wisconsin.
Well, thank you so much for your time, and thank you for everyone who attended. Like I said, this has been recorded, and I'll send it out after, and I can also send out additional links and resources. So thank you again.
All right, thank you.